Hi, I'll invite you to read Philosophy. The complete name of the book is Philosophy, an Introduction to the Art of Wondering by James L. Christie. Prelude. The following pages may cause you to wonder. That that's what philosophy is, wondering. To philosophize is to wonder about life, about right and wrong, love and loneliness, war and death, about freedom, truth, beauty, time, and a thousand other things. To philosophize is to explore life. It means breaking free. To ask questions, it means resisting easy answers. To philosophize is to seek in oneself the courage to ask painful questions. But if by chance you have already asked all your questions and found all the answers, if you are sure you know right from wrong and whether God exists and what justice means and why men fear and hate and pray, if indeed you have done your wondering about freedom and love and loneliness and those thousand other things, then the following pages will waste your time. Philosophy is for those who are willing to be disturbed with a creative disturbance. Philosophy is for those who still have the capacity for wonder. Chapter 1. What do you mean philosophy? Sometime at your leisure. If you want to know what philosophy is, go into a large bookstore and browse. Check a variety of books in psychology, anthropology, physics, chemistry, archaeology, astronomy, and other non-fiction fields. Look at the last chapter in each book. In a surprising number of cases, you will find that the author has chosen to round out his work with a final summation of what the book is all about. That is, having written a whole book on a specialized subject in which he is probably an authority, he finds that he also has ideas about the largest meaning of the facts he has written about. The final chapter may be called Conclusions, Epilogue, Postscript, My Personal View, Implications, Comments, Speculations, or, as in one case, So What? But in every instance, the author is trying to elucidate the larger implications of this subject matter and to clarify how he thinks it relates to other fields or to life. He has an urge to tell us the meaning of all his facts taken together. He wants to share with us the philosophic implications of what he has written. When he does this, the author has moved beyond the role of a field specialist. He is a philosopher. This is a textbook in synoptic philosophy. It is an invitation to ponder in the largest possible perspective the weightier, more stubborn problems of human existence. It is an invitation to think, to wonder, to question, to speculate, to reason, even to fantasize, in the eternal search for wisdom. In a word, synoptic philosophy is an attempt to weave interconnecting lines of illumination between all the disparate realms of human thought in the hope that, like a thousand dawnings, new insights will burst through. By its very nature, philosophy is a do-it-yourself enterprise. There is a common misunderstanding that philosophy, like chemistry or history, has a content to offer, a content which a teacher is to teach and a student is to learn. This is not the case. There are no facts, no theories, certainly no final truths which go by the name of philosophy and which one is supposed to accept and believe. Rather, philosophy is a skill, more akin to mathematics and music. It is something that one learns to do. Philosophy, that is a method. It is learning how to ask and re-ask questions until meaningful answers begin to appear. It is learning how to relate to materials. It is learning where to go for the most dependable, up-to-date information that might shed light on some problem. It is learning how to double-check fact claims in order to verify or falsify them. It is learning how to reject fallacious fact claims, to reject them, no matter how prestigious the authority who holds them or how deeply one would personally like to believe them. The students should be aware that philosophy has never been just one kind of activity with a single approach to a single task. Rather, there have been many kinds of philosophy. The quiet philosophy of the sage, who sees much but speaks little because language cannot hold life. The articulate, noisy dialects of Socrates, the calm of logical apologetics of Aquinas, the mystical philosophy of Plotinus and Chuang Tzu, the mathematical philosophy of Russell and Wittgenstein. Each school of philosophy has concentrated upon some aspect of man's knowledge. Logical, analytical philosophy has worked long and hard on the confusion which vitiates so much of our thinking and communicating. Pragmatism has concentrated on finding solutions to problems of man's social existence. Existential philosophy has been concerned with making life meaningful to each unique individual. Activist schools argue that philosophers spend too much time trying to make sense of the world and too little time trying to change it. Several schools of philosophy, Eastern and Western, challenge the individual to turn away from an alienating society and to seek harmony with nature or ultimate reality. Each kind of philosophy has made an immense contribution to its area of concern. Each was doubtless a part of the zeitgeist, the spirit of the age, which gave it birth and to which it spoke. The present unhappy condition of human knowledge calls for the application of a synoptic methodology. We now possess vast accumulations of specialized knowledge in countless fields, but these fields remain isolated from one another. Yet, it is increasingly clear that many of our urgent problems can be understood only when the specialized information from a variety of these separate fields is integrated and seen together synoptically. It is only then that we can develop realistic solutions to these complex problems. It is often said that philosophers engage in two basic tasks: taking apart, analyzing ideas to discover if we truly know what we think we know, and we don't, and putting together, synthesizing all that knowledge to find if we can attain a larger and better view of life. We can. But in practice, philosophers do a lot more than this. They talk a lot. They carry on dialogues with anyone who comes within range, and they argue a great deal. Not the usual kinds of argument in which egos fight to win, but philosophical arguments in which they attempt to clarify the reasoning that lies behind their statements. And no one cares about winning, since in philosophical arguments everyone wins. They also ask one another for definitions to be sure they are thinking clearly, and they push one another to pursue the implications of their ideas and statements. They brought themselves and others to examine the basic assumptions upon which their beliefs and arguments rest. Philosophers are persistent explorers in the nooks and crannies of human knowledge, which are commonly overlooked or deliberately ignored. It is an exciting but restless adventure of the mind. Philosophers, this is a quote by William Halverson. Philosophers, however, do not engage in this critical task just to make nuisances of themselves. Indeed, the central aim of philosophers has always been to construct a picture of the whole of reality in which every element of man's knowledge and every aspect of man's experience will find its proper place. Philosophy, in short, is man's quest for the unity of knowledge. It consists in a perpetual struggle to create the context in which the universe can be conceived as a universe and not a multiverse. The history of philosophy is the history of this attempt. The problems of philosophy are the problems that arise when the attempt is made to grasp this total unity. It cannot be denied that this attempt stands without rival as the most audacious enterprise in which the mind of man has ever engaged. Just reflect for a moment. Here is man, surrounded by the vastness of a universe in which he is only a tiny and perhaps insignificant part, and he wants to understand it. In one respect, philosophic material can be deceptive, since it deals with life by examining the sort of questions we ask every day. Some of the subject matter will have an easy, familiar ring. The fact is that synoptic philosophy must be as diligently studied as any other subject, not to remember data, but to set the mind in motion toward developing larger concepts, connecting ideas, and seeing through and beyond mere words and facts. In a sense, intellectual growth happens to us. It is not really something that we do, but it happens to us only when our minds are given a chance to operate on their terms. They take their own time to process information and to begin developing a web of interconnecting lines of illumination among their materials. This undertaking is partly conscious, of course, but largely it is an unconscious process. This is why much philosophic insight just happens, as though the light moves from the depths outward and not from the rational consciousness downwards. Only disciplined study with an open mind will produce philosophic awareness. Insight and consciousness still come only with relentless labor. In this age of instant everything, there is still no instant wisdom, unfortunately. No two of us possess precisely the same information or see things from the same viewpoint or share the same values. Therefore, each of us must do synoptic philosophy in his own unique and personal way. A student entering upon the activity of philosophizing may need to be on guard against developing a worldview which resembles a bit too closely the prepackaged philosophy of life belonging to someone else or to some institution. Most of us are philosophically lazy, and it is easy to appropriate another's thoughts and rationalize our theft. The British logician Wittgenstein warned us that a thought which is not independent is a thought only half understood. Similarly, a philosophy of life that is not the authentic product of one's own experience is a philosophy only half understood. Nor will any of us succeed in developing a finished philosophy, for as one changes with life, so does one's thinking. A philosophy of life must change with life. Doing philosophy is an endless activity. For this reason, this textbook is merely an example of synoptic philosophy. This is the way I have had to do it because of my perspective, my interests, my areas of knowledge, my personal concerns, and my limitations. But your worldview will be different because it will be yours and yours alone. This is why my attempt to do synoptic philosophy is, at most, a guideline showing how it might be done, at least the expression of a hope that someday, in your own way, you will resolve the contradictions of your own existence, both of knowing and of being, and proceed to see life in a larger, more fulfilling way. And that is the reason why I have chosen to read this book about philosophy as the first one with this new channel I've just created. And now I would like to share some thoughts that appear in the book. Let me just position here because you will see them appearing while I read it. Okay? Time magazine, January the 7th, 1966 said, "There is an old saying that philosophy bakes no bread. It is perhaps equally true that no bread would ever have been baked without philosophy. For the act of baking implies a decision on the philosophical issue of whether life is worthwhile at all. Bakers may not have often asked themselves the question in so many words, but philosophy traditionally has been nothing less than the attempt to ask and answer, in a formal and disciplined way, the great questions of life that ordinary men put to themselves in reflective moments." This is another quote by I Ching. "One can tell for oneself whether the water is warm or cold." Here there is another quote by Albert Schweitzer. "As soon as man does not take his existence for granted, but beholds it as something unfathomably mysterious, thought begins." That's very true. Another one by Fred Hoyle. "Here we are in this wholly fantastic universe with scarcely a clue as to whether our existence has any real significance. No wonder then that many people feel the need for some belief that gives them a sense of security, and to wonder that they become very angry with people like me who say that this security is illusory. But I do not like the situation any better than they do. The difference is that I cannot see how the smallest advantage is to be gained from deceiving myself." Here there's a good quote by Viktor Frankl. "Man's concern about a meaning of life is the truest expression of the state of being human." And one by Albert Einstein. "Out yonder there was this huge world which stands before us like a great eternal riddle." A great eternal riddle. So true. And there is another quote here. "There's a cartoon street with a picture of a little girl who sets up a psychiatric booth which says, 'Psychotherapy, 5 cents.' In Los Angeles, a chaplain at a college has set up a booth which says, 'Spiritual counseling, 5 cents.' And he says that one of his most frequent questions is, 'What is the meaning of life?' The answer to that ought to be worth at least 5 cents. That was by David Brinkley from NBC Nightly News. Here I have another one, unknown author. It says, "What all the schools of philosophy have in common is a concern for the condition of human knowledge and our knowledge of the human condition." And here there is another quote by Alfred Adler. "The meaning of life is arrived at by dark gropings, by feelings not wholly understood, by catching at hints and fumbling for explanations." And there is another one by Dunn and Dosansky. "Understanding man and his place in the universe is perhaps the central problem of science." And finally, one by Socrates. "For man, the unexamined life is not worth living." Well, and finally, I will leave you two cartoons on the screen after I leave the screen. Okay, that are very interesting and that also put ourselves in front of philosophy. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope you learned something from this. Maybe you will improve your English. I'm open to your comments. If you like it, share it. Click on the bell so to receive the new videos, and enjoy this journey, because this is a journey. This is a journey of learning. This is the third time I'm going to read this book, and every time I read it, I learn something new. And I want to share this with everyone, because now society has become too short. This is the 1 minute, 2 minute society. But I truly believe that there are things that we need to ponder about and go deeper. Okay? So thank you for listening and have a great day. Take care. You know what your trouble is, Charlie Brown? You don't have a personal philosophy. You need to develop a philosophy that will carry you through times of stress. Can you do that? Can you develop a personal philosophy? Think, Charlie Brown, think hard. Life is like an ice cream cone. You have to learn to lick it. That's the most stupid philosophy I've ever heard. I can't do anything for someone who has a philosophy like that. You're hopeless, Charlie Brown. It's hard to develop a real personal philosophy in less than 20 minutes. The dropouts. What does it all mean, Alf? Beats me. Alf? Yep. Alf, where did the moon come from? Who knows? What makes all the planets round? Can't say. Is there life on other planets? Wish I knew. Do you mind me asking you all these questions? Not at all, Sandy. How else are you going to learn?